course not. You cannot trust them because they completely ignored our culture and our cultural demands way back, years ago. So I cannot trust them. When they removed, when AOS was built, I had set up criteria, and that's why I'm scared, because who will be watching them? You know, I set up criteria for them to, whatever they take out from the land, any holes, that it stays on the site. I was sick for 3 weeks. They took 1.5 tons of rock down to the rock crusher and crushed it. And myself, Papa Kalakea, and went and prayed on the pile, and I followed 8 truckloads back to the national park so that they can use it in repairing cracks within the crater. You know, I mean, there's big money involved here. It's scary that, you know, we got to be careful. The people that follow that criteria, people that call themselves a couple, are they real?
That's what I wonder.
You know, are they real?
They just appoint somebody and give them $50,000 a year.
Or 5.
They want to do.
I plan to question that. Whoever
Cultural
they choose,
genocide.
I plan to question that. Because I'm a kupuna, and I set up the criteria, and I plan to see that it maintains.
Thank you so much.
So funny.
So,
Too much.
that was about them taking Maui's Haleakala Mountain. Now this right here is Senator McCain leads plans, sorry, Senator McCain leads planned theft of Apache sacred lands for copper mining. So anytime they find out you're sitting on some type of material or natural resource that they can process, you gotta think, maybe they couldn't process a lot of the different things, or they couldn't find it because of the technology. Now they remove you. A lot of times when there's Indian removals, it's because of these natural resources, or because they wanted to build homes in said areas. Everything revolves around water sources. That's why a lot of the ancient cities are near these modern cities we have today. So if you look over here, McCain and his team of thieves hid away the theft of Oak Flat, the sacred lands of Apache, in the National Defense Authorization Act passed by the Senate on Friday. After being passed by the House, McCain and his fellow thieves in Congress have duped the public once again, and they all came out smiling. The snakes used similar spin and deception for the so-called Navajo Hopi land dispute, which was actually to clear Navajos off their land at Black Mesa for Peabody coal. Just 2 different ones. This is the Navajo Hopi for their coal. The coal fuels one of the world's dirtiest coal-fired power plants, Navajo Generating Station, on the Navajo Nation in Arizona. The stench of this government and media deception is also found in the secret files of the United States internment camps, where Aleuts were forced to live. Now we're talking about Aleuts. And many died of starvation and disease during World War II. Even in the mid-20th century, the U.S. government carried out a secret program of sterilizing American Indian women in Indian Health Service hospitals. You think they ain't trying to do this to you? You know the story's out. The deceptions are also obvious in the United States destabilization of Mexico by providing assault weapons to drug cartels. The ATF's gun running, including Project Gun Run, Fast and Furious, and Operation Wide Receiver, began under the Bush administration in Texas in 2005, according to a U.S. Justice Department document. Around the world, the U.S. military's agenda is to provide weapons to and whatever is needed for guerrillas, regardless of whatever they are on the side of good or not. This fact is made clear in the U.S. Army manuals. The purpose is to destabilize countries from within, which gives the U.S. the advantage and enriches the U.S. corporate war profiteers. It also creates homelessness for the dispossessed, who become migrants and can once again be turned into profit by private prisons in the U.S. Perhaps America is too busy shopping at Walmart, which has made slaves of their employees while the owners become billionaires, to care about the Obama administration killing innocent women and children with drones as they strike without individuals being charged or given trials. Perhaps Americans are too busy doing their holiday shopping to care that indigenous people defending their lands around the world have been assassinated in 2014 by mining companies and others. Perhaps Americans are all satisfied with the watered-down U.S. torture reports, media cover-ups of police murders of blacks, and dull TV news and national radio programs claiming there is no racism in America. Perhaps one of the saddest of all news items in 2014 was a black public, as national reporters for Indian country news continue to stay home and plagiarize. They let the coyotes and snakes run free in Congress. McCain, once again, is the darling of the coyotes and snakes. That's it. That's what it's about, right there. Fucking snakes. That's all they do. They're like a disease. So this isn't Hawaii. This is the one in Big Island. This is the Mauna Kea. So this is the origin point for Hawaii. And this is the highest mountain in the world from the bottom to the top. See, but what happened is a lot of the mountain is under the ocean because the plate we sit on is sinking. This was the old plate where Lemuria stood on. But now it's all underwater. So this is a Hawaiian guy, mixed obviously. And I think she has Hawaiian too. The construction of a 1.4 billion telescope on land considered sacred by some Native Hawaiians will resume Wednesday, according to the non-profit company behind the project. So this is an old one. So what happened was the Hawaiians came out in groups. I went out too, and we protested, and we got them to stop again. A lot of people got arrested, but we got them to stop. And then enough time to hold off to the Supreme Court ruled, and they ruled that this is illegal. So they stopped the construction. But now they're trying to push it through again. They just won't stop. This is like the 8th time. They won't stop unless they get more money. You know what? The last telescope they made, they let Caltech use it for 14 days, and they got like $2 billion, something like that. And none of the money went to Hawaii. All went straight back to the corporations. We're so crazy, man. I tell you, every day I say we stupidest because in the world, man. We crazy. So this right here is another one. It's about Hawaii. So this is what happens, right? This is what they do. They come on here. You see? They come on here and they take all these Hawaiians and the kids, whether they may be mixed or not. And they use like locals too, the descendants of Hawaiians or Hawaiians. And they make them come out and they arrest you. And they don't, there's no joke, right? They come and pack. They're like, they bring all the biggest guys too. They're ready. This is what they do, so they can put this up. When in Brazil or something, they got one twice as big. Why do they need a 33-meter telescope when they got a 60-meter telescope? Right down the road, man. It's all about money. They don't even tell you the truth about space. They don't even tell you the truth about the world you live in. Like, come on now. See, look, all the telescopes. This guy's an actor, and so he got inside of it because he know that he cares a lot of political power because he's an actor. Look how it used to look. I think there's an old picture. That's not good. This is it. How's that? That's how it used to look. This is how it looks now. How are you now? So all around the world, not just Hawaii, and all around, they're taking everything. And you're not hearing about it. Now, you're gonna listen to this. This guy's saying that genocide never happened in America. I know from my experience, from my research, 300 million people died. But let's see what they say and let's see what I can find.
If you look at the rhetoric, Bill Ayers represents what I call the spirit of 1968. And this was the radical spirit that saw America as a force for evil, saw Vietnam as a metaphor for how bad America was, and then went right back into American history and reinterpreted American history as a series of crimes visited upon the Native Americans, the African Americans, the Mexicans. So this became a kind of anti-Americanism that was fostered in America, and it became pervasive in our schools, our colleges. It's now part of the media. So our culture is shaped by this.
No, I think it's interesting. First of all, both of you are acting like the ends justify the means is absolutely from Mars, but when your ends are in question, like invading Iraq, you're all for it, you're all in, and that's the end justified. That's a violent end. But on this question of the spirit of 68, we went back and reinterpreted history, and you act as if the reinterpretation of history was some kind of fiction. We did commit genocide against the Native American occupants, and we did enslave people for 250 years. And the question, could you be a moral person and own slaves, I think is something that you dodge. And so what I would say is, you need to look at the thing honestly, and don't be so afraid of the fact that we did terrible, terrible things in our history. And in order to get right with the world, we have to repair those issues.
But we shouldn't flagellate ourselves for things that we didn't do.
Let's, for example, that's at all. I don't believe in flagellation.
Let's look at genocide. The American Indian population shrunk by 80% over 150 years. The main reason for that was not because of warfare or systematic killing. That's because the white man brought with him from Europe diseases to which the Native Americans, did not have any immunities. And so they perished in large numbers. Now, the Europeans, one-third of the population of Europe 100 years later had been wiped out by the Black Plague. Where did that come from? Asia. So with the migration of people, diseases go from civilization to civilization. That's not genocide. Genocide is when you intend to wipe out a people.
They intended to wipe out the people and steal their land, and they did both.
Do you think there's a reflexive instinct?
You think there's a reflexive instinct?
To the leftists, I guess you are, to blame America first.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Blame America first, huh? Alright, let's see. Let's check it out then. If you're blaming America first. So, it says, 100 million Native Americans. The biggest genocide in human history. didn't occur in Nazi Germany, but on American soil. 100 million Native Americans were slaughtered and lost their lives and lost their land. Who for many years taught political science at the University of Massachusetts, this is about Gunter Louis, has been a contributor to commentary since 1964. His books include The Catholic Church of Nazi Germany and Nazi Germany, Religion and Revolution, America and Vietnam, and The Cause That Failed, Communism in American Political Life. On September 21st, the National Museum of American Indian will open its doors. In an interview early this year, the museum's founding director, W. Richard West, declared that the new institution would not shy away from such difficult subjects as the efforts to eradicate American Indian culture in the 19th and 20th century. It is safe to bet that someone will also inevitably raise the issues of genocide. The story of the encounter between European settlers and America's native population does not make for pleasant reading. Among early accounts, perhaps the most famous is Helen Hunt Jackson's A Century of Dishonor, a doleful recitation of forced removals, killings, and callous disregard. Jackson's books, which clearly captured some essential elements of what happened, also set a pattern of exaggeration and one-sided indictment that has persisted to this day. Thus, according to Ward Churchill, a professor of ethnic studies at the University of Colorado, the reduction of the North American Indian population from an estimated 12 million in 1500 to barely 237,000 in 1900 represents a vast genocide, the most sustained on record. But by the end of the 19th century, writes David E. Stanyard, an historian of the University of Hawaii, Native Americans have undergone the worst human holocaust the world had ever witnessed, roaring across 2 continents, non-stop for centuries, and consuming the life of countless tens of millions of people. In the judgment of Lenore Stiffer and Phil Lane, there can be no more monumental example of sustained genocide, certainly not involving a race of people as broad and complex as this, anywhere in the annals of human history. So this goes on and on and on, and it'll talk about, oh, everywhere is this much million, that much million. But you'll find the real numbers if you go and investigate them separate on your own. Just bring this up right here. Like, this says American Indian genocide. This is Rational Week. Are terms used by specialists in American Indian history as well as American Indian activists to bring attention to what they contend to be a deliberate mass destruction of American Indian populations. So this estimates the pre-Columbian population very widely, though uncontroversial. Studies place the figure for North Central South America at a combined 50 million to 100 million. So you can read all of this, man. You know how we always give little numbers. They went buck wild. Why do you think Christopher Columbus got locked up and died in prison? He wasn't supposed to kill all those people. They were supposed to be slaves. Imagine the things they could have built with 100 million more people. Crazy. Or the stuff we could have built. You know what I mean? Maybe look at Hawaii too, look. Because unfortunately, not only did contact with Western civilization destroy a robust and strong culture, it also introduced diseases to Hawaiians that they never had been in contact with before. Simple diseases that most every Western child has killed hundreds of thousands of strong Hawaiians and brought their population to chilling numbers, as low as 40,000 by 1890. Because you guys, these are bioweapons you guys created at the highest yield. Get out of here.
exposing Hitler and the Holocaust and the terrible tragedy that occurred with the Jews, where 6 million people perished. What most people in this country fail to realize is that the model for that was here, was the treatment of our NDP, was the model for Hitler. He said so. He wrote it down. He said that the prison camps here were the model for prison camps. Also, the whole notion of turning people against themselves within the prison camps, keeping them busy with each other so that they couldn't escape or just have other ideas, was also born here. And he thought it was a very good plan. And he really admired Andrew Jackson. You know, so, it's a little known part of history, but it is a reality. And nobody doesn't really address it. Nobody doesn't really talk about the Holocaust here. I mean, there were conservative figures, 19 million people living in North America. 19 million. And by 1970, there were 260,000. They didn't move to Hawaii, you know, or they didn't go to Sweden. Where did they go? They are gone. They were gone. Killed. Murdered. But 19 million people. That's not a Holocaust. I feel that this country doesn't understand historically what happened to indigenous people. They see it on television and they read it in the books, but they really don't see it in a practical sense.
It points directly toward the racism of this country, of the white person, of the dominant society, of manipulation of the environment and of its people. To us, to the white man, we're just kind of like a cactus on the trail. You chop it away and get it out of the way so you can keep walking down the trail and seeing what the beauty you want to see. I think it's one of my goals is to have our people look at themselves and stop dancing for white people and saying we're so pretty. I want us to say, look what you've done to us. Look what you've taken. Look at the beauty we had and still have to offer you. And stop treating us like subhuman human beings. Because we don't deserve it and we don't need it.
For more than 500 years, American Indian people have been subjected to the ever-changing whims of the white man, who with sword in one hand and Bible in the other, swept across this land like a plague of locusts. What the people of the United States did not know was that their so-called enlightened nation was setting an example that would be followed in the 20th century by some of the worst butchers known to man, including Adolf Hitler. In his biography of Hitler, John Toland wrote, Hitler's concept of concentration camps as well as the practicality of genocide owed much. John Toland wrote, Hitler's concept of concentration camps as well as the practicality of genocide owed much, so he claimed, to his studies of United States history. And he often praised to his inner circle the efficiency of America's extermination by starvation and uneven combat of the red savages who could not be tamed by captivity.
You hear that? Got it from America. From your forefathers being murdered.
And then the American governments tried many different approaches. First they tried subjugation. Then when that failed, extermination. And when that wasn't totally successful, then came the reservations.
This is what you
and
are.
The land set aside for reservations in the 18th.
If you live in a hood, all you live in this hoods and it's surrounded by liquor stores and all these bad food places, everything's created for you. That's a reservation. We all living on reservations, man.
Hundreds of generally the most worthless land that could be found. Indians were relocated to these lands for as long as the grass grows and the rivers flow. Unless like in the Black Hills of South Dakota, valuable mineral resources are discovered on that land. And then the Indians are uprooted and relocated again.
Like I told you, valuable resource.
The enrollment issue originated with when the government set up reservations.
Trying to number, log, and tag you, just like in the Bible.
Assigned to that particular
They want to number, log, and tag
as
you.
it were at that time. Everywhere was given a number so that they could identify the people who were reservation-bound Indians, because reservations at the inception were no more than glorified concentration camps. Indians were forbidden to leave them. And so you were given your tribal identity right then and there by the United States government. That's another labeling system. There probably was an importance for it at the time to find out numbers of indigenous people. And now it's almost being used against us. And for a lot of the Native American Indians, whatever you want to call them, don't have a number to rely on. And for a system, for even being considered a part of the rest of us, to put out, to put aside, pushed away, and saying you don't qualify, even though they may have a higher blood quantum than myself. See, we're being